Welcome back, everybody, on the live YouTube channel by Legal Creative. My name is Tessa Manuelo. I realized I forgot to introduce myself for the entire day. I'm your host. I can hear I can hear myself. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I could hear myself because I had the YouTube page open on my desktop at the same time. So here we are. Thank you, live viewers, for being here. I am with Chris Sykes from the UK, who is working in legal tech. He's been starting Ziggle in Asia first, and now he's back in his home country in the UK as head of new business development, if I'm correct. And he's a lawyer. He used to work as a lawyer before. Believe it or not, he used to be a criminal lawyer. Chris... and he moved into legal tech. See, everything is possible when you believe in your dreams and you believe there's an opportunity. So that's what we will be talking today, Chris and myself, about legal education. We'll be talking about the challenges that we see in legal education, the opportunities, and how you can overcome them to stand out. Chris, do you want to say a word before we get started about maybe about yourself, if there's anything you think you would like to add to the little bio I just gave to the live viewers and replay viewers?
Yeah, I think it's worth reiterating that I used to do probably one of the most traditional legal jobs available on the planet. I was a criminal defense lawyer, and that involves going to court and representing people who are charged with criminal offences. It involves, the court system in its most traditional form. And now I find myself as the co-founder of a legal technology company, and so it really has been something of a transformation. And it's worth pointing that out, because I think there's lots of people who work in the legal profession who are slightly worried by or perhaps disinterested in or even frightened by legal technology. But if someone like me can make that transition, then I guess anybody working in the legal profession can make that transition.
Thank you. It's very interesting to see that even if coming from a very traditional legal background, you can still be successful in legal tech. And that comes to the first question that I have for you is, why doing such a big shift? Did you see any challenges in your in the legal profession or in your job? Maybe that's more of a personal story.
It's the why did I change? Well, for me, I enjoyed my job in practice, being a solicitor. But I'd always had the idea, and me and some law school friends had always, and one law school friend in particular, had always ideas about doing something different in the industry. Now, after I finished practice, I became a teacher of law and legal skills, and that's why I guess I'm here. We're talking about education around legal tech, and that's why I'm involved in education and mentoring in this area. So I moved into that area, and then of course I was involved in setting up Ziggle. I think that for me, it was a big challenge 4 years ago. The expression legal tech or law tech, it was hardly used. But people like my family didn't know what I was talking about. The public understands what being a lawyer is, but it doesn't often understand legal technology. It's a big decision. It's a big risk, because one of the things about law is that you go into it to study, knowing that you'll have a relatively well-paid, relatively secure position in a job that a lot of people respect. But for me, I'd already kind of jumped from practice into education, and the jump into legal tech was an opportunity that I really couldn't miss. I think.
And so what happened at the time when you wanted to train yourself in order to build a startup. How did you do that? Because I don't see any legal curriculum at universities or law school or bar association dealing with legal tech. So,
well, this is the thing, is that at the moment it's very much the people involved in the industry at the moment have pretty much taught themselves. Now, I've been very fortunate because I work in a business with co-founders from a variety of different backgrounds, from the legal profession, obviously, but also people like my CTO, Terry Wong, who was a judge as part of the global legal hackathon. Other co-founders who work in things like marketing, work in sales, work in business consultancy. Lots of people with far more experience or far broader experience than me, just working in the legal profession. Not to discredit knowledge within the legal profession, but you become very specialised very quickly. So I was specialised in criminal, and then I specialised more in fraud and white collar crime, that kind of thing. So when it came to how did I train myself? Well, it's been a slow process, I have to admit. But being involved in things like creating creating ideas around the business, creating products, and looking at how products work and user experience, and even plans for marketing. All these sorts of things, they're very creative parts of a business, and something that lawyers don't normally get involved in. So me and my colleagues, we've learned as we've gone along. We've looked at things that legal tech is a business, or is an area like any other. So you look at how things have been done in different areas of technology, and we try to learn from technology and see how it can be applied to the legal profession. For me personally, it's been an absolutely fantastic experience. I'm now, I guess I've forgotten a lot of law, a lot of what I used to do. Hopefully not too much, but now, for example, today, being online, seeing what's going on with legal creatives, that's how I carry on learning. That's how I carry on improving. People who are starting out in this profession, people who people have been working in technology for years, and so I suppose I'd have to say that how I've trained myself, if that's the right word, and really it's others who've helped me, is by you learn as you go along, and also you learn from the people closest to you, your co-founders, your colleagues, those sorts of smart people.
And so, Chris, do you feel like the traditional legal curriculum needs to change? And if it does need to change, do you think there are specific skills or fields that needs to be integrated in the curriculum? Because I believe you do also brainstorm as a legal, and you're no professor. I mean, you're teaching, you are lecturing, so you do also have those questions about what kind of legal education do we want to implement. Would you like to share a little bit about those thoughts and ideas with our audience?
It's an interesting area. I mean, it's a brilliant time to be studying law or be a junior lawyer, because there's so much going on in this side of the profession. And a few weeks ago, I met a law student in their first year of an undergraduate degree in London, and he was slightly concerned that somehow the legal profession was going to change so much he wouldn't have a job in the end. And I said, well, look, this was at a legal tech event. I said, well, you're in the right place. There's loads of opportunities. It's just that things are changing quickly, and but in a good way, in an exciting way. Now,
have any questions?
Sorry.
For Lucy.
Oh, I'm trying to get the chat on the YouTube, and every time I do it, it goes with the sound. Sorry about that.
Right. I see. So from an education point of view, there's lots of primarily at the moment in the United States, there's law schools doing either pro master's programs or undergraduate modules that are relevant to, or rather, I suppose in the United States, postgraduate modules relevant to legal tech. Now, in various, I've been talking to various law schools about how they can add legal technology as a subject into their kind of core syllabus, at least as an option. Maybe not as a something compulsory. But the issue is not just it's not just about creating a kind of dry legal subject. You have to learn contract law, so you learn different cases and you learn how contract law works. But legal technology is something different because legal technology is so new. There isn't 30, 40 years worth of syllabus to look at. You can ask people to look at various papers and read various books that have been written on the subject, but there isn't a huge amount. So I think the focus in legal tech education, and you can see this in, for example, IE Law School in Madrid has launched a legal tech masters, but they're based around very practical skills and often based around this idea of multidisciplinary skills. So and this is something that other universities I've spoken to in the UK, and I'm probably not at liberty to talk about which universities these are at the moment, but universities I've spoken to in the UK want to bring together the legal departments, but also the business departments and the computer science departments to create courses which involve learning skills such as business and commercial awareness, something that lawyers don't necessarily have to study or don't really need to be aware of, but also areas more creative stuff like you mentioned before, legal design generally, maybe even coding, computer science, all sorts of things that could come into this area, and it will be led in some cases by business studies departments. It will be led in some cases by tech departments, but it's got to be multidisciplinary. There's nobody out there at the moment. There aren't people who are professors of legal tech. That will still be a few years away. So it has to be more about how that they're taught. It can't be. It's got to be more. I would say, and this seems to be what law schools are doing at the moment. That the creativity and sort of entrepreneurship is fostered through approaches that are very similar to legal hackathons, that are very similar to what the legal design competition that Maria Jesus was talking about earlier. That basically you'd bring people together. Somebody goes along and studies an undergraduate course in law, and maybe there's a unit there around legal technology, but it's not a kind of dry subject. It's maybe something where they work on a project or work in teams. Going forward to things like practical legal skills, like you learn on the legal practice course in the UK, which drafting, the skills of a lawyer, drafting, advocacy, interviewing a client, writing a letter, etc., etc. Alongside these, you might have certain skills like using the current technology. If you think about it, normally you're taught how to use things like Westlaw and LexisNexis when you're studying, but you learn how to use them as a tool that's going to help you, and you could be taught other sorts of practical tools. But that would be more for the practical side.
And what might happen if nothing happens? Because so far we don't see any announcement about new programs, or at least it's not very common. No. What are the dangers of not changing the legal curriculum? Are there any dangers?
I think so. I think there's two levels. One is the kind of, at the moment, what you're seeing is the legal tech profession is kind of teaching itself. So you see, organizations like yours, you see, Flip in Singapore, you see, legal hackers and legal geek, these organizations, running events. Hong Kong University, for example, is working in this kind of area as well. It's coming far more from the profession, almost teaching itself. The universities are always going to be slower to catch up. Now, if nothing is done, if it just carries on as normal, then that's okay. And in universities across the world, students are churned out, for want of a better word. People go to law school and then they finish and they go and be lawyers. But then the issue is that they then will have to they won't be in such a strong position to compete, for example, for jobs and careers around legal tech. They won't be in a strong position to use legal technology in their own practices. If they're going to go and work in a big law firm, so I use some examples like DWF here in the UK, who have a ventures arm, basically a separate company that works around legal tech and innovation. Those sorts of jobs will be harder to get into for those who've just stuck to the kind of equity and trusts, contract law, criminal law sorts of training. Not impossible, because it's like I've done. It's you can move into legal tech with relative ease, but it's going to become a bigger industry. It's going to become more competitive, and there's going to be lots of people who come from the technology side who can teach themselves a little bit about law. The law people need to teach themselves a little bit about technology. I don't know if nothing changes, then I think it's maybe going to hamper the future creativity in the legal profession generally. It's going to mean that big law firms are going to spend more time, and a lot of them, have accelerators and such like, but they're going to spend more time bringing in people from outside the legal profession to help them, rather than looking for innovation within the legal profession. Remember also, of course, that even the word innovation barely featured in the legal profession. 10 years ago. You now, even most big law firms have a partner in charge of innovation, and their only job might just be to pick which kind of IT systems that they use. But nevertheless, it's here. So I think there's no choice. I think it has to move on, like everything. The other thing is, as well, is at the moment, I think legal tech is perceived as just something for the big law, for big law firms or the legal tech industry, or a kind of combination of both. And small, what you call high street firms, are not getting very much in terms of, they're not getting much benefit, or it's perceived as a competitive edge for big law. But I think actually, if those lawyers are given more of a foundation, let's say in the criminal that I did, if lawyers who go into criminal law are given a foundation in legal tech, that can only be a benefit to the industry and a benefit to those individuals.
So we have a comment here on the YouTube live by Ibrahim, who says that you are definitely right. They had a reading group about AI at NYU. However, it was not related to legal tech per se. So there's still a lot to be done, I understand. And according to you, what are the critical skills that needs to be developed by legal professionals in order to stay ahead of the curve? When I talk about the curve, I mean the technological curve.
I think it's worth for established legal professionals should do things like they should, even if you've been in practice for years, you should still go to kind of legal tech events. You should still keep your finger on the pulse, stay up to date. So that's a good start. In terms of your skills, I think that there's a change in mindset which is useful, which is treating your legal practice more like any business would treat it itself. Law has always been very separate, almost put on a higher pedestal than most kinds of business. And I think you've got to treat it more like, you want more clients, so you have to improve your SEO and that sort of thing. That's the sort of thing that lawyers didn't used to think about. Now, in terms of skills, I think it's a very broad range. Most lawyers, experienced lawyers, don't need to improve the things that they do, like their knowledge of legal advice. But I think lawyers have to have more of an understanding now of technology generally and the world of technology. And I think they also should feel. I'm a great believer that legal tech or people working in legal tech should not feel that it's either just a little bit that's stuck onto law. That in legal tech we're kind of the poor cousins, I suppose, of law. I've got lots of friends who are partners in big law firms, and I sometimes think that they think I just run a website or something. But and so it's kind of
a blog maybe.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also think that it should be considered just, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. Legal research is now done online almost entirely. People don't look at books anymore, and that transition happened really, really quick. And nobody cares. It's the same businesses pretty much. It's LexisNexis that used to make the books, and now they make the search engines. It's that kind of thing. So it's the same stuff, and lawyers adapted to that really, really quickly. It just made their life easier. Now, if they have the same sort of approach to legal technology, and whether that's AI, smart contract, blockchain technology, whether that's new platforms for finding new clients, whether that's new billing methods, these are all things that you can easily understand and use in your practice. And so perhaps in summary to that, maybe the key skill is to remain open-minded. It's to remind yourself. Look, law is very much like a route that takes you from a generalist into more and more of a specialist, and teaches you to be very rigid in your thinking. It teaches you that there's no halfway house. A case says one thing or it says another. The law is written, it says one thing or it says another. But the world of kind of, the startup world, the world of entrepreneurship isn't like that. And so therefore, if you want to remain, if you want to kind of, stay fresh and kind of stay relevant in a changing profession, I really think you've got to think about being innovative. I mean, again, going back to me personally as a story, I find myself in Cyberport in Hong Kong, sat in a beanbag with a load of very creative, very smart people who are much younger than me, working out ideas and talking about, how we can improve certain things and change certain things. Now, if I'd stayed in the traditional legal profession, I'm wearing a suit, I'm talking to my clients, and I'm presenting in court. I mean, the difference in skill sets is phenomenal, and that's not me saying I'm like amazing or anything like that. It's I just try
different, right? It's just very different.
Yeah.
We have Ibrahim, who is the one who made the comment. He's an Egyptian lawyer, and he used to do an LLM. No, he is doing his LLM at NYU, and he's funding a startup for arbitration using blockchain, AI technology. And he's been a lawyer for 5 years before coming to the US. So thank you, Ibrahim, for mentioning and presenting yourself.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it shows you, he's studying an LLM in a different jurisdiction where he was a lawyer. He's been in the profession for a while, but he's seen that there's maybe a need for something. He's seen that there's something that can help. I was teaching a group of apprentice solicitors. You can become a lawyer by being an apprentice now in the UK. With Sykes Law School recently, and I asked them to come up with an idea about something they do which is boring, that they hate in their job, and could it be done by technology? And there were some ideas that were brilliant. I wrote some of them down. It's if you think about your day-to-day job and you think of the things that you hate. Now one thing that was suggested was a robot that would go and do a load of photocopying. I'm not quite sure how that works. You can't make, but courts still want traditional bundles with the papers all tied together.
It might change as well, but it might be for the legal tech to bring solutions for the court system as well, to be for an e-justice.
Yeah, well, then maybe that's it. I mean, maybe things have certainly changed. I mean, I remember being I'll get my words out. I worked on a case on a big fraud case where, for once, the judge in the case actually gave out her email. So it was such a large, complicated case. Now, serving a judge, certainly in the UK, but having access to an email address was phenomenal. It used to be papers or fax normally, and you address it to the court generally, or the clerk, not the not the individual. So, but that shows you. I thought that was quite an exciting development at the time, and it was just somebody's email address. I know.
I was talking with a lawyer as well in Montreal, and because I'm so much involved into technology and the digital, just like you, and like probably many people who are watching. and she had a bailiff to come and pick a document to be served, right? Because she needed to have a proof. And thinking about, you know, what we promote at Legal Creatives and what we do with Legal Tech, like this entire system of calling a bailiff to come and pick up a document and serve it is, I understand it's the way it works, but it like we send emails, tons of emails every day. There must be a way for all of this process to be much more simple, given the technology that is available now on the market.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, I don't think innovation, and I know you're. This is part of what you do is innovation, not just around technology, but innovation generally. But for example, you know, I remember talking to lawyers in Spain where I used to live about, you know, what does a notary do? You know, for those of you that aren't familiar with what a notary does, it's simply they're given money to kind of verify a transaction. Nobody really knows why they exist anymore, but they certainly get paid a lot of money for doing something. But if you can't explain why somebody does something, it can probably either be got rid of or it can be done in a different way.
So we have Ibrahim. Ibrahim, who says, yeah, he used to work, I understand, in international arbitration, which I know fairly well. I used to work in arbitration in France as well for almost the same time as you, Ibrahim. And he says it's a very old-fashioned field. There's no real intelligent software database for international arbitration. And we have actually a question. We have Ricardo from Brazil who just jumped in. And we have someone, I don't know the name, but I believe from a developing country saying, do you think lawyers are able to change the traditional mindset, and especially in developing countries? What do you think about that?
Well, this is interesting. We've encountered different. I mean, our business has only launched Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. So these are all relatively developed legal systems that have been there for a long time. But the attitude that we've had from lawyers to legal tech generally has ranged from love it to kind of fearful of it or don't like it. And but it's interesting that, you know, for example, when we first launched in Singapore, I remember a couple of lawyers, especially junior ones, thinking that we really weren't, you know, they didn't understand what we were doing and they couldn't see the value to really any technology. And now you've got Singapore, you know, the Ministry of Law and the FLIP program completely making itself into kind of one of the hubs of legal tech. So things can change. In developing countries and in many countries, in fact, lawyers occupy a very privileged position, both in terms of money and in terms of what they do. And there's often, you know, there's less lawyers in much the same way as, for example, I mean, I think that the opinion of lawyers in areas such as Western Europe and North America has gone down over the years. You know, I mean, I'm a solicitor and my parents are very proud of that. But 30 or 40 years ago, that was a kind of, you know, that was a job that you know, really commanded a lot of respect. I think being a lawyer should command a certain amount of respect. But at the end of the day, it's a job like many other jobs, you know, so I don't think it should be treated extra special, like, you know, it's different from everything else. I think that the way of making sure, I think that technology in developing legal systems can be used to aid those trying to build those legal systems. And I know that there are people working on, you know, kind of ideas for sharing information, you know, especially around things like the rule of law, that sort of thing. You know, I know that, you know, systems for, you know, systems of litigation can be improved to mean that people on the ground in you know, developing countries can have better access to justice, which I think is, you know, something that some of the speakers have mentioned today. I think that, you know, the technology can always be used to, you know, improve access to justice, and access to justice is kind of at the heart of what you do as a lawyer.
So according to you, and that might be the final question for our session on legal education with Chris Sykes today live from the UK, If you had one piece of advice that you would like to give to young generation of legal professionals who want to get involved into legal tech and want to be successful at solving the access to justice issue or enhancing the user experience, as we've been discussing this morning with Maria, what kind of advice would you give them? Where to start?
Where to start?
Where to start?
Well, where to start? That they're already in the right place, because if they're on this, if they're joining you and today's program, that's the first step. It's attending, you know, these sorts of things. It's getting involved in global legal hackathon. It's going to Legal Geek in London in October. It's putting yourself into that profession, and it's being, you know, you don't have to. There is no qualification yet for legal tech, so you can be quite cheeky. You can approach, you know, legal tech startups and say, "Have you got a job?" You can see what's kind of, you know, coming in that profession and basically see if there's. I mean, now you can see that there's jobs going in you know, both in law firms in terms of legal tech. So I think you can just be quite, I suppose, again, you know, just be quite cheeky, just kind of go for it. I mean, if anyone wants to drop me a line or, you know, have a chat with me, that's you know, that's fair enough. Just, you know, find out a little bit more, or what, you know, what I'd recommend, or find some useful resources. You know, be cheeky, find people on LinkedIn. There aren't that many kind of legal tech, I don't like to use the word thought leaders, but there aren't that many kind of
influencers and experts.
Yeah, there's not that many experts, and even the experts aren't always. You know, all the experts are still working their own way. You got to remember, if I you know, I don't know, sit on some legal tech panel with a bunch of other sorts of legal tech, you know, experts in inverted commas. Often we're all still working out our way. We're still trying to build our businesses up. We're still trying to, you know, find.
We're trying to figure it out.
We're all trying to figure it out, and it's the nice thing is it's not written in stone. It's all everyone's trying to you know, figure stuff out. Luckily, as well, in the profession so far, there's a lot of collaboration and cooperation, which you don't have generally in the legal profession. Now that might change in the next few years as we all get, you know, there's more businesses, the businesses get bigger, this kind of thing. But at the moment, you know, speak to me, you know, speak to you, speak to
Maria,
Vesberg, speak, you know, like speak to the guys that run Flip in Singapore, speak to some of the guys that, you know, and go to these events, see what's going on.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing those tips, Chris. We had Hamed Moffat from Egypt. So we had two live viewers from Egypt, from Israel. We had also Ricardo from Brazil, who is in the final round. Congratulations, Ricardo. The agenda for today is full already. It's a little late, but send me an email. I'm sure you can find my coordinates on legalcreatives.com, and we'll see what we can do if you need some help. And Chris, it was a pleasure to have you again on Legal Creatives Global Events. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insights. Always very appreciated for me as well. And I can see also from the live viewers, given the level of engagement we had on this session today. So let's keep going with pitches this afternoon, at least for my time zone. We will be having another pitch in about 20 minutes. I believe it's Lemonade from Africa. And then we have Anika from Australia at 4 p.m. And we'll be finishing the day at 5 p.m. All that New York time, with myself talking about legal creativity. So going a little deeper into creativity for legal and innovation. So stay tuned on the YouTube Live. We will be right back. Thank you again, Chris. Wish you a great evening in the UK.
Thank you.
And have a pint for me.
I will do. I'm gonna go.
I have coffee.
My wife's pregnant, so I don't get out anymore. See you. Bye.
Thank you so much for being here. Take care. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.